SRE teams are structured and how to begin. Okay. Let me help you. This connected.
Get a timer. Are we good to go? Hi. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for staying so late. It's really great that you can see my session today. I'm super happy to be in Craiova. It's my first time in Romania, so woohoo. Oh, great. So my name's Campbell, and my talk today is how SRE teams are structured and how to begin. So, a little bit about myself. My name's Jai. I'm a London-based senior architect. I work for a company called Wipro. I also work as a senior engineer where I consult for different organizations. I love tech communities. I founded an SRE community in London, similar to GDG Craiova. I'm an co-organizer at GDG London and a GDE specializing in Google Cloud. It's been great to hear about all the different applications and development with Flutter and Terraform today. I'm learning myself. I'm starting to learn how to develop on Android, where my key interests of focus are AR, VR, and XR technologies, including wearable technologies. So my session today is focusing on the culture side of technology. As application developers, infrastructure engineers, when you create these really cool products, you want them to be available to your users, and this is where SRE can really help you achieve that goal. So there'll be an introduction to site reliability engineering for anybody that's new to the actual role or to the practice. How these teams are structured, how would you actually build an SRE team? SRE teams are not all the same, so we'll walk through the different types of implementations. Where to start your SRE journey? Hopefully you'll be looking to either build an SRE team internally or either get into the role yourself. I'll show you a few quick tips on how to get started. And with that, I'll lead into some resources and how you can actually certify in the role yourself. So site reliability engineering. So SRE is a set of principles and practices that incorporates aspects of software engineering and applies them to infrastructure and operation problems. So the main goals are to create scalable and highly reliable software systems. Site reliability engineering is closely related to DevOps, a set of practices that combines software development and IT operations. SRE has also been described as a specific implementation of DevOps. You might have heard the term Class SRE implements DevOps. That's where we are today. So why do these roles exist? We have to take a little bit of a step back. Cloud is relatively new. There are still some legacy organizations that are still moving into cloud. And they have traditional IT teams where they're split between developers and operators. The developers are looking to push new features to the applications, and they sometimes throw them over the fence for the actual operators to look after. So this can create conflicts between the teams. Generally, the developers want to push new features faster, but the operators want them to slow down a little bit to make sure that they're reliable. So that doesn't scale well, and it can cause frictions between teams. Due to this, a new culture emerged, and with this came best practices known as DevOps. So let's have a look at the 5 key pillars of DevOps and SRE. On the DevOps side, we have reducing organizational silos, which means if you're working in a large organization, you might have the developers sitting on one side of the office, and you might have the operators sitting on the other side. Or they might have split repos, or they might not talk to each other that much. Breaking that down and having more collaboration between the teams eases that tension, and it makes it easier it makes it easier to push out new applications that are more reliable. One of the other key pillars of DevOps is accepting failure as normal. Systems break, we're humans, we're developers, we push changes into Git, things will break. We want to implement gradual change. So think of a large application. Rather than pushing 100 new features at once, we want to try and reduce the impact if something goes wrong, and maybe push 1 or 2 features at a time so we can gauge whether they're actually buggy or if they work as intended. To help that, we leverage tooling and automation. We heard some earlier with infrastructure as code, tools like Jenkins, Terraform, and we like to measure everything. If we can measure everything, then we know which services we need to actually look after and which ones deserve our attention. And then SRE kind of builds on that. It's an implementation of the DevOps philosophy. Where we're reducing the organizational silos, we're building on that so it's more shared ownership, where it's not just the developer's problem or the operator's problem. We're working as a team, and it's all of our problem. So it's that shared ownership. SLOs? Closer? Okay. With SLOs, SRE implements SLOs, service level objectives, and blameless postmortems. So if something does go wrong, we sit together in a team, we have a look at what happened, we find out the root cause, and we take action on those issues so that it doesn't happen again. We reduce the cost of failure, again, by making small incremental changes across the product stack. It decreases the blast radius if something was to go wrong. Building on leveraging tooling and automation, we would like to automate this job away, automate this year's job away. And then building on measuring everything, we're measuring toil and reliability. When we talk about reliability, we have to talk about availability. So availability in SRE terms defines whether a system is able to fulfill its intended function at a point in time. Think about common applications or common services that you use. If the service is up, you're happy. If the service is down, you're unhappy. If your users use your application repeatedly and it's unavailable or it's unreliable, they're going to go to a competitor. So SRE will help with that. And building again, reliability is important to your users. In this example, we can see that Vimeo's down. If a user goes there 2 or 3 times, if they're a content creator and they're uploading video to the streaming platform and they're unable to access the platform, they're going to move to a different platform. Okay, so we touched on a few of the terminologies. So SLIs, SLOs, and SLAs. These are the key fundamentals of SRE, and once you start building out a team, these are some of the terms that you're going to become really familiar with. An SLI is a service level indicator, so it's a carefully defined quantitative measure of some aspect of the level of the service that is provided. With an SLO is a service level objective. It's a target value or range of values for a service that is measured by the SLI. These are key fundamentals that you will start off in the beginning as you start to look at critical user journeys and building out SLOs for your most important features. And then finally, we have SLAs. These are the service level agreements, an explicit or implicit contract with your users that in consequences for missing the SLOs they contain. Talk a little bit now about how SRE teams are structured and the various types of SRE team implementations. One common misconception that I've seen as working as an SRE consultant, as working with different clients, is that an SRE team is just working on automation, on monitoring. There's different types, and we're going to explore them now and see how they might fit your organization and work best for you. So we have the kitchen sink, aka everything SRE. So the kitchen sink, this describes an SRE team where the scope of services that they support is usually unbounded and tends to grow organically. This is often and can be the first and only SRE team in an organization, and with time, this SRE team will adapt and possibly change or split into one of the different implementations below. A risk here is the growth of the company and complexity of the system can outgrow this team's impact. That doesn't mean it's not a good place to start. It's a really good place to start, but you really need to understand that you would like to build on this team, and we'll look at the various different types, how this will change as your engineering team becomes more comfortable with the SRE itself. We have a product/application SRE team. So this type of SRE team, we will discuss a little bit later when starting to form an SRE team. However, they work to improve the reliability of a critical system or business area. If we think back to YouTube, the critical user journey for YouTube could be if a user goes to view a video, is the search result going to return what they want or as intended? Or will it return the result in a predetermined amount of time? One of the risks with this implementation, though, is that as the complexity increases, additional products and application teams will be required. Additionally, as the team is focused on a specific area, this can lead to limited knowledge sharing and duplication of effort. A big thing with DevOps and SRE is that collaboration. We want everybody on the same page. So it's really careful to keep this in mind if you work with this type of implementation. The infrastructure team. So the infrastructure SRE team, these teams tend to work more behind the scenes. In my experience, they are similar in nature and complement a platform team. So they work on shared services, managing pipelines, Kubernetes clusters, IAM, and networking. In large organizations that are moving to cloud, what they may do is stand up a CCOE, which is a cloud center of excellence, where they help with cloud adoption within an organization. An SRE can really complement this by taking some of the burden off the platform team and helping leveraging the shared services. Imagine having a Kubernetes cluster for, say, a large bank that maybe have 50 or 60 product teams pushing into different namespaces. This is where the SRE team can help standardize the actual onboarding of those teams. We have a tools team. So tools-only SRE team, they tend to focus on building software to help the developers maintain and improve the reliability. I've personally seen a similar type of SRE team implementation, where that particular SRE team were partly responsible for onboarding new application teams onto GCP. They was ensuring monitoring and best SRE practice were being followed. So again, it was a really large organization. We had about 150 different application product teams working on different aspects of different products. As we was bringing them onto the platform, what we had was an SRE team that would work with blueprints, help them with their pipelines, help them with their monitoring systems, so that it would be a smooth experience, so that the platform team could focus on more of the general core area of the environment. The embedded SRE team, these teams is teams that I'm generally working with outside of consulting. They're embedded with other teams. With this type of implementation, you would have one SRE per team. They're usually time-bound, and they'll work with a specific product. So you might be launching a new application or launching in a new region. They need some help with their monitoring and their observability. An SRE will work with them for maybe a couple of months or maybe half of the year, and they will help guide them while they're first coming online. This allows close contact with the SREs, where the best practices can be shared. Some of the cons with this type of implementation, though, is because the SREs are working really hard on the product, they might not have enough time to really mentor the other engineers or developers in the team. So it's a real hard balancing act at times. Then you have the consulting implementation. These SRE teams are similar to embedded SRE teams. I've seen large organizations, again, use SRE consultants as a tactical choice when first starting to build out an SRE team. These teams, they tend to avoid changing customer code, and this can lead to them seen as kind of a bit hands-off because they're more working in like a third-party capacity rather than actually working on the code base, standing up dashboards, or actually implementing some of the best practices directly by writing the code for the customer. It's important to bear in mind with all these implementations that there's different types of implementations, and these can all complement each other depending on the size of your organization. I pulled out this quote from a SRE called Chiara. "We solve cooler problems. SRE is a role that is really suited for someone that's a problem solver. If you like solving problems, you like working on different projects, SRE is a really good role to look into. I will share my slide deck after this, because if you're really interested in working in SRE, it's good to have a look at some of the job postings, not just at Google, but broadly from other companies to see what kind of tools SREs work with, what experience would you need to actually get into the role. Do you have any questions at this point? Okay. So we've talked about a few of the types of the implementations that you can have when you're starting to build out SRE in your organization. I'm going to share a few tips and tricks that will help you kickstart and think about how would you actually make your journey into SRE. So step one, and I'll prelude this by, at the beginning when you're implementing SREs, it can be, if you haven't had DevOps before, if you're coming from, again, from a traditional organization or that traditional mindset, it's important to get senior leadership buy-in. So it's like vice presidents and senior management, because if you want the SREs to be able to enforce error budgets and put limitations on code pushes, you really need the buy-in from the top. So step one, start small and iterate. Remember, SRE is a practice and a role, so even if you do not have a full set of SRE engineers, you can still use some of the best practices as a developer or as an engineer. Often starting with a proof of concept is a great place to start, and it allows you to build on your successes. Don't try to boil the ocean. Find one critical user journey, find a critical service, start working on that, build your monitors and the best practice around that. This will allow you to show your users and ultimately the business that SRE provides value, and your users will be happy because of that. Step two, again, we're focusing on the culture. Empower your teams. Implementing SRE principle requires buy-in from all areas of the organization. It's a big culture change as well as technology and process. Enablement is a key area. Training will often be required, and identifying which personas will need which specific training. So that could be your operations engineers, your product developers, your product managers, your PMs. It's everybody in the organization really needs to get on board and understand the kind of changes you're trying to make. As with the previous step, start small and keep it simple. Understanding and focusing on key concepts is vital at this stage. So work on one critical path, one critical service. Show something where you've actually made a success and that can be built on. Step number 3, scale the learnings. So as you're establishing SRE best practices, you want to start building an internal SRE community. With this, you will start addressing the culture, the community, the enablement, and the processes. This builds on the previous 2 steps, and with that, it's now time to find, or it'd be a good time to find an internal SRE champion or ambassador within your organization that can help to drive adoption. And how this can work is you could build like a shared Confluence space or a shared repo where you talk about the code changes that you've made, the SLOs that you set for a particular service, and show how they're making a meaningful impact to the internal organization. What can help you with this aspect, with step 3, is the Google Cloud Adoption Framework. And this kind of walks you through onboarding into GCP from a tactical, a strategic, and a transformational perspective, and will help shape some of the learnings and some of the processes that you see here. Step 4, embody a data-driven mindset. So starting SRE can take time. In SRE, try to be as data-driven as possible. Creating a measurement culture is vital. We've heard the buzzwords, observability, and making data, capturing data. You want to collect as much data as you can so that you can make meaningful decisions. And again, you'll identify which services you need to focus spending engineering time on by working on the ones that are going to bring value. Collecting data that represents your customer experience will be much easier to identify gaps and prioritize the work needed to be done to improve your customer experience. This is a good stage to start running blameless postmortems, and this will contribute to a learning culture. So again, it's that team collaboration. Things will go wrong. With a blameless postmortem, you'll have everybody in the room and you'll be able to openly discuss what went wrong, what was wrong with the technology, what was wrong with the process, rather than focusing on the individual that might have made a code change. Things happen, so this is a good time to actually identify the root cause and work together. So what are your next steps? You need to assess where you are. Whether you have DevOps in your organization, or you're thinking about bringing DevOps into the organization, or building SRE, look internally and assess where you are on your journey. There's an assessment checklist, which I've linked at the end of this slide deck, which allows you to gauge your level of implementation. Step 3, is your SRE team starting out, or have you already established some of the fundamentals and are ready to advance? This is where you really need to look inside your engineering capacity and think, what are we doing? Maybe you're already doing some of the SRE fundamentals, but you just haven't have a team that's labeled as SRE. Maybe your developers are working on SLOs, but they haven't had time to show everybody or their managers that they're actually doing that. So looking internally is a really good thing to do. Number 4 is a key step. Speak to other similar organizations for advice and guidance. It's more than likely that there's another organization that you might be quite friendly with, or you're able to reach out to, and they can share their learning experience or any pitfalls that they might have had whilst they've been trying to build out SRE. Learning from the successes from others will help you on the road to success. And then finally, build on the successes that you've already made. If you started, again, implementing fundamentals, or you're quite ahead of the curve, build on your successes and allow SRE to work on possibly more complex problems or work on more high-risk applications. So, SRE resources and certification. If you're new to SRE on an engineering or developer level, there's ways that you can get started to influence your organization by empowering yourself and helping to be that champion or ambassador to say, hey, this is going to add value to our products and our applications. One of the first ones I would suggest is the Site Reliability Engineering books. On the left-hand side is the first book, Site Reliability Engineering. So this is the first book launched by the Google SRE engineering team, and it really gives you an introduction of why SRE was introduced and some of the key concepts within SRE. The Site Reliability Workbook is more of a hands-on approach, where it gives you real-world examples and shows you how to actually implement these yourself. And then the third book, Building Secure and Reliable Systems, is about DevSecOps. A system can't be truly reliable and available if it's not secure, and the both of these go hand in hand. So it's important to secure your networks and have them secure as well as reliable. So the SRE book updates. Here we go here. There's been some changes to the book. It's been updated a little bit now, so if you click on the book updates, you can go into each chapter and see how Google SRE and other organizations that have been implementing SRE have updated some of the workflows and the processes, because it's an evolving field, it's an evolving practice. Things are always changing, people are learning new ways of working. This is a great place to have a look. It's also a great place to look for some of the terms and terminologies today that I might have used that you might not be that familiar with. This will go into great depths about that. Another great place to start is to get certified as a DevOps engineer. Google Cloud has the Professional Cloud DevOps Engineer, where you can actually learn the processes, learn all about the best practices yourself, get certified, and with these skills and knowledge, you can take this into your organization or to any projects that you're building and build best practices into the products and applications that you're building. And then lastly, this is a really cool one. This is a program, the Road to Google Cloud Certification. Is a free 6 weeks guided program designed for people who want to prepare for Google Cloud Certification. You learn with peers in a cohort, you get free access to Google Cloud, and you learn with other engineers and developers that would like to be a DevOps engineer, how to really succeed. As a member of GDG, if you go into the main website list and look for Road to Google Cloud Certification, you'll find a cohort near you. And this is not just limited to SRE and DevOps. You can find data engineering, machine learning, architecture, and security cohorts on there. Thank you. Before I leave, I covered quite a bit in this talk. If you take a picture of this slide, and I will share it after the event, this has got loads of resources. There's code at the bottom, but also real-world examples and blog posts from the Google CRE and the SRE team that will allow you to increase your journey. Another key place to learn about site reliability engineering is at Google Cloud Next 2022, where the latest updates and best practices will be shared. You can join that virtually or attend online. Thanks again.